Party Affairs. I'm the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication Technology in the Republic of Namibia. And this afternoon, we'll be doing a media briefing on the salaries and benefits negotiation between government and trade unions. This afternoon, the government statement will be read by the Minister of Labour, Honorable Utoni Nuyoma. Good afternoon, Honorable. Welcome to the Government Information Center.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. The government of the Republic of Namibia, hereinafter referred to as the government, and the recognized trade unions, hereinafter referred to as the unions, have been engaged in salary and benefit negotiations since March 2021. Following the demands by the unions, the parties have at this instance been in negotiations for over 1 year. The trade union demands were increment in basic salary by 9%, housing benefit by 9%, and transport benefit by 10%. The government of the Republic of Namibia, led by the SWAPO party, which is a party whose foundation is built on matters of workers' interest, remains committed to find amicable solutions to challenges faced by the Namibian workers. It must be noted that the government has no interest in depriving public servants of their benefits, as we have made an offer in response to the demands of the public servants. After a series of discussions, the parties in the first instance reached an internal deadlock, which necessitated them to form a subcommittee to examine facts on the performance of the economy, the fiscal revenue forecast, and other factors influencing the revenue situation of the country. At the conclusion of these subcommittee meetings, the parties were able to understand and appreciate the difficulties that government has in meeting the demands. The trade unions understandably deferred the negotiations of basic salary as a result, and for such discussions to only happen as part of the financial year 2022-23 negotiations. After the internal deadlock, government offered trade unions an offer increase benefits of 4.5% for housing and 10% for transport for below the management staff. This amounted to 225 million as a cost to government. Unfortunately, the trade unions rejected this offer. Following this rejection, a deadlock was thus reached at that point. The trade unions then approached the Office of the Labour Commissioner and registered a dispute of interest relating to the salaries and benefits for public servants. The conciliator was then appointed by the Labour Commissioner in terms of Section 82, subsection 3, read with Section 82, subsection 9 of the Labour Act of 2007. The conciliation process was held from 20 April to 23 May 22. As a matter to resolve this impasse, government revised its offer of the increase in benefits effective from the 1st of April 22 as follows: housing benefits for management 14.5%, housing benefit for management 12%, and transport for non-managers to 14%. The total cost of this revised offer is 334.9 million. At the end of the meeting on the 23rd May 22, the trade unions rejected this offer by government, leading to the deadlock and the issuance of a certificate of unresolved conflict. Therefore, the reports that government offered a zero increment is not true. Despite the deadlock reached through the conciliation process, the government is committed to further engagement with the trade unions so that issues of disagreements are further discussed. The government offer is premised on the following considerations, namely, the current economic and financial situation in the country, the state of the state finances, which remain stretched to meet the current government expenditures, inclusive of the remuneration of staff members, the need to sustain the critical public service and program as well as to protect public service jobs, the evaluation and contribution of staff members to the public service delivery, and lastly, the commitment to no job losses in the public sector. In emphasis of this reality, Namibia lost on average 3 percentage points of revenue as a ratio of GDP since 2016 due to economic downturn coupled with drought and other external shocks. The government spent a total of 628.2 million to mitigate the impact of the said drought. Additionally, at the same time, the expenditure rose significantly to cushion the impact. The economy suffered terribly from the impact of COVID-19, leading to the economic activities declining by a record high of 7.9% and more than 400 lives lost. The government stimulus package to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 amounted to over 8 billion so far. However, in light of the dwindling government revenue, poor performance in the economy, hardships caused by COVID, and the geopolitical development which impact negatively on many aspects of the economy and leading to the deterioration of our fiscal position, that is revenue, debt, and deficit. The government's fiscal position is not able to afford the full scale of demands presented by the trade unions, especially in the increase in the basic salary, which trade union presented that such discussion of its negotiation be deferred from the current negotiations. The government of the Republic of Namibia is cognizant of the plight of the entire Namibian citizenry in these trying times. It must be noted that over 12,000 Namibians lost their jobs due to COVID-19 and others suffered pay cuts up to 50%, while public servants continue to enjoy the benefits that they already have, even in face of these difficult circumstances. The situation is already undesirable with government spending up to 48.9% of the national budget on public servants who make up only about 4.2% of the population and just over 10% of the Namibian workforce. This leaves the 51.1% of the budget to be spent on government services and programs to benefit the rest of the Namibian population. It is therefore in view of the aforementioned that the government has considered that due to lack of resources and other pressing national hardships, it is not the right moment to promise or agree to further salary increases when the country is not in a position to afford such additional cost. We have been making this call to our social partners, the trade unions engaged in negotiations, to consider this and accept the offer made by government instead. Therefore, engaging in an illegal strike will only weaken our economic base, disrupt public service delivery, and distort all recovery efforts. It is important to allow our economy to go back to its growth trajectory, because once growth is realized, it also provides needed revenue to address our national budget needs. Undertaking strike action when there is no revenue to raise funds is not a viable option. The public servants are urged to consider the situation of all affected Namibians. In their letter dated the 11th July 2022, The unions indicated to government that they receive a mandate from their members to act in terms of Section 74 and 76 of the Labour Act of 2007, Act number 11 of 2007, respectively, and hence have decided to conduct the ballot process on the 28th and the 29th of July across all sectors of the public service in respect of the unresolved dispute for public servants to decide their next course of action. Without being preemptive of the outcomes of the ballot exercise scheduled for 28th to 29th July 22, we wish to point out that there are consequences for the government, the public servants, and the country at large. We recognize that the employees, in terms of the law, have a right to exercise their right to go on strike. However, under those circumstances, the employer is under no obligation to enumerate any of the employees that partake in the industrial action. Government throughout the negotiation has been very open, accommodating, and transparent with the trade unions in terms of the financial position and the difficulties the country faces. It is in light of the above that our offer, which places additional income in the hands of our staff members in form of transport allowance and housing benefit, be considered under the difficult economic times. It is, as it is the best offer that government can make at this time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Honorable Minister, for that statement. In the studio, considering this is a media briefing, we are also joined by a group of cabinet members and the government negotiating team. And at this moment, I would like to invite the Minister of Basic Education, Arts and Culture, Honorable Anangi Pondoka, to make her own statement.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister, for the opportunity for me to just highlight on some of the possible impact on the teachers striking on education, if it would happen. The ministry wishes to take, in the first place, this opportunity to thank our teachers for their perseverance and fortitude during the last 3 years. COVID-19 was a momentum challenge for our teachers, who have shown their ability to adopt new ways of ensuring our learners receive education regardless of the circumstances, to adapt to the changing environment, and to improve on their delivery. We could not have done it without you, our dear teachers, as we could not have made it this far without your inputs. COVID-19 also reaffirmed to us the importance of school and the importance of our learners attending school on a daily basis. We saw the increase in learners' pregnancies, the increase in violence against children, and the loss of school security of our learners' experience, of food security of our learners' experience. We have a total number of 28,773 of teachers employed by the government and 755,131 learners in state schools, of which 5,044,870 are in primary school and 208,098 are in secondary schools, according to the Education Management Information System 2021. According to the Institute for Security Studies 2017, Situational Analysis of Children in Namibia 28 by UNICEF, Namibia has one of the lowest rates of access to calories. The Namibian school feeding program currently benefits more than 400,000 learners countrywide. Many of these learners accessing school feeding rarely rely on this as their only meal of the day. And with school closures, this severely impacts on the nutritional status, which further leads to learning losses. The impact of school closure will be severe in terms of hostel catering as well and hostel accommodation. Learners will not be able to be in the hostel without persons to prepare their meals and to supervise them. The ministry has entered into agreements with hostel caterers, and the food items are perishable. Thus, there will be a great loss in financial resources, which will be claimed from government. Parents can demand their learners should be in the hostels as they have paid their hostel fees. Violence is rife in the Namibian context, and according to the situational analysis of children in Namibia, children of all ages are at the greatest risk of violence within the household. School closures increase the risk of children to be exposed to sexual violence, abuse, exploitation, gender-based violence, suicide, rape, and early pregnancies. As an education fraternity, we are just rising from the ashes of the destruction of the COVID-19 pandemic with regard to the curriculum implementation and attainment. School closures, even when temporary, were problematic for numerous reasons. Foremost was a reduction in instructional time, which impacts learning achievements. When schools closes, educational performance suffers. Disrupting schooling also led to other harder to measure losses, including inconveniences to families and decreased economic productivity as parents struggled to balance work obligations with childcare. The closure also compounded educational inequities. Economically, advantaged families tend to have higher levels of education and more resources to fill learning gaps and provide enrichment activities to children who cannot attend school. In order to address the number of days which were drastically reduced in 2020-2021, the ministry rationalized the curriculum short term to focus on key topics and skills, which was conceived to enable learners to at least progress to the next grades with basic and minimum requirements. It should thus be noted that even the promotion policy requirement was relaxed in order to respond to insinuating and special circumstances created by the outbreak of COVID-19. The school education system was still implementing their resilience plan in order to enable teachers to recover the learning loss experienced during school interruption and closures. To aggravate the situation, there was already existing learning gap among learners from the lower income commitment and marginalized groups, which became widened due to the inability to provide alternative learning opportunities, such as the use of digital learning and access to ICT tools, competencies, and data. In the event of a teacher strike, the first concern is that learners experienced immense learning loss over the past 2 years and needed time to recover through face-to-face or in-person learning opportunities. Some learners are still performing below the expected curriculum standards and competencies. The school system is already experiencing rapid increase in learner population over the past decades, attributed to multiple factors. This led to overcrowding classes and created a high demand for more than 4,000 additional classes. Therefore, it practically means that individual learning support is a challenge, and the strike by teachers will make the situation worse. In 2020, Namibia completed with the curriculum reform, which started with the implementation of junior primary phase in 2014. The strike will only add to the existing limitations we face on assessment and conclusively suggest the impact of the reformed curriculum on learning outcomes. Learners are already coming from the long school holidays, and unnecessarily additional day will have an impact on learners' progress and mental development when they come back. 2022 is the first year of relative normalcy our learners have experienced, with a structured restored to their day. the structure restored to their day, their ability to participate social and physically in school activities on a regular basis back into place. The abrupt closure of schools can be traumatic to our learners who have been missing schools and yearning for a return to their normal routine. Our learners cannot lose any more teaching and learning time. Learning loss within all phases, and particularly for grades as taking national examinations, will be catastrophic, and which might take a long time to recover. Our national examination timetable are already in schools, and school closures will have a negative impact on all processes involving including the release of the results. Hence, next academic year calendar will also be negatively impacted, both for formal education and for institutions of higher learning. This will also have massive financial implications. Namibia Senior Secondary Certificate, ordinary coursework and oral examination will start from the 12th of September to 29th of September 2022. The written examination will commence from 17 October to 23 November 2022. The Namibia Senior Secondary Certificate Advanced Subsidiary Coursework, oral work examinations is done between the 10th to the 21st October 2022, and the written examinations 10th to 18 November 2022. Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister of Education, for that statement that supplements the government's position on the salaries and benefits negotiation. As I said earlier, in studio we're also joined by cabinet members in the name of Minister of Finance, Honorable Ipumbushimi, and the Attorney General, Honorable Festus Bandeka. I'd like to give this opportunity to the media, however, if there are any queries or questions to the group of cabinet ministers who have made the government's position so far. All right, it seems we have no questions from the media journalists that are in the room. And if there is no supplementation of any statements from the ministers on the podium and on the stage, I'd like to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in this media briefing as government gives its statement on the salaries and benefits negotiations related to the negotiations between government and trade unions around the public servants' salary increments. Thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you always tune in to the Government Information Center sessions. Have a blessed day.